Welcome to the Financial Game Plan with Hannah. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Financial Game Plan with Hannah. I am your host, Hannah Birchday, and today I have a really neat fellow mama out there who is also into the investing world. Jen, how are you today?
Hannah, thank you so much for having me on. It's a true pleasure.
Oh, I'm so happy. So tell me all about you, who you are, how you got into real estate, how we connected. Tell me everything.
Sure. So my name is Jen Narciso. I'm the host of the Investor Mama podcast. I'm a real estate agent and a mom of two amazing kiddos, 6 and 3. And we started our portfolio before kids. We did the whole house hacking strategy, and it's been a huge blessing for our family. And I'm all about it. And so I launched the Investor Mama podcast in it's like 2020, like right around the pandemic. And the goal was to really kind of help motivate, inspire, and educate other moms, whether it was through real estate or through just personal finance or starting a business, but all through the lens of having a kid. And so you and I met actually in a podcasting course through
Yep.
Kathy Heller.
Yes.
And so, yeah, podcasting is amazing. I love it. I love networking, connecting, and having amazing, fun conversations to hopefully inspire other moms, other people, just that, anyone can become wealthy. It just takes a couple mindset shifts and just being consistent and getting educated. And so if you're listening to this, that's awesome. And congratulations to you on starting your own real estate journey.
I absolutely love that you brought that up. My big whole premise is who I am is I believe that anyone can do real estate. There are hard days, working with the bank sucks, tough times, but really for the most part, people are not rocket scientists. And like you said, they're becoming wealthy. My husband and I have a couple houses. We have our apartment complex. I go to conferences. We are on track to do very, very well. I'm very proud of us, but I want to do further. So can you tell me about your real estate investing career? Like what have you done so far? I know you talked about the house hacks with me a few moments ago. Tell me about that. Walk me through that process.
Yeah, sure, of course. So, right out of college, my husband and I met in college, and a couple years out of that, we were looking to move in together. And I literally had the rich dad, poor dad experience of
Ah,
working for I had two friends, parents. One was an attorney and one was an accountant. And the accountant worked in the attorney's like office who owned the building. And my quote unquote rich dad said, you need to buy the buildings and get into real estate versus the accountant who would justify working really long hours by saying that, well, if he commuted to and from city, it would be like that long. So he would work till, let's say, 6, 7 o'clock. And so it's like, I want to own the building. I don't want to be the person.
absolutely.
And yeah, and then so back in it was like 2013, we bought our first property. All of our friends were buying their dream homes, and we bought a duplex. We lived in the smaller unit as a 1 bedroom. Our friends thought we were crazy, and we lived in it for quite a few years. And then it was the best decision. It helped us. We lived in a very high cost of living area, and so by house hacking, it really allowed us to get our foot in the door into an area we never would have been able to afford on our own. And we didn't make much money, but we our mortgage was like our mortgage was pretty much like covered in essence. So in that regards, I guess we did make like we were living for free, and that allowed us to really save when we were young, and then expound our wealth from there. So that was kind of, and then we had our daughter, and then we moved upstairs, and we didn't have to move far, and then we rented out the downstairs, and we kind of just repeated the process.
Can you tell my any of the listeners out here who don't understand what house hacking is? What is that?
Sure, of course. So it's where you buy a duplex, a triplex, or a quad, or you can even do this with a single family. We just did it with a duplex, and you live in one unit and you rent out the other. And so we lived downstairs. We lived in a 1 bedroom. We had tenants. We were able to make enough money from their rent to essentially cover our mortgage. And that then allowed us to not have a mortgage. So we were essentially living for free to really then save aggressively. And when our friends were all house poor, we were using that time to really build our wealth that way.
That's amazing and truly spectacular. It's just really hard to do the thing that everybody else is not doing. I know my husband and I know you and I have talked a little bit about our story outside of the podcast, but we, around the pandemic time, we're like, okay, we got to do something because working for a living is just, well, it sucks. So we got to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, we had this ridiculously large 5 bedroom house on a golf course, gated community, all the luxury cars. We had that lifestyle and we sold it all. And we moved down to a
Wow.
tiny starter home. And everyone we knew was like, you are crazy. Like straight up, y'all
Yep.
crazy because we
Yep.
made it. We lived in the area that was the nice part of town, right? It was the place you wanted to go. And it was very hard. I cried a lot, but it allowed us to be able to buy several more houses just from the equity of
Hmm.
that plus our savings account. And now we have an apartment building, and now we're looking at buying a business, and now we're looking at another building. And it's the
Hmm.
way that you were able to compound that, like you said, it's spectacular and hard to do. So kudos to you for doing it when your friends are living the big house, being house poor. It's still hard. So kudos to you. That's fantastic. That really
Right.
is.
Well, that allowed us then to house hack again. So once our daughter got a little bit older, we realized the 2 bedroom was getting small. I was pregnant again. So we said, all right, let's repeat the process. And so we bought in an even nicer area. We upgraded and talk about doing something crazy. We actually did an addition on the house while I was pregnant. I remember we moved in, we got back, and we ended up adding another bedroom to this. This is a new complex that we bought, another duplex. The downstairs was a 1 bed, 1 bath with a completed basement, and the upstairs was a 5 bed, 3 bath. So much
Wow.
bigger, right next to a downtown area, train station, awesome. And but we're like, we can make enclose the porch and make that a 2 bedroom then. And that would really like increase the value. We did that with our daughter, and everyone said we were nuts, which we probably were. And I remember we got back like the first day they started construction, and I said, we cannot live here. And this was like 5 o'clock, and there's dust everywhere. That like it was bad. And I said to my husband, like, what are we gonna do? I have to pick her up from school, and like, where are we gonna go? And we literally called all these motels in the area. We don't live in that type of area, so it was like hard to actually find a hotel even with it that was close. And we just packed a night of clothes for a couple days rather, and yeah, we stayed in a hotel and we did the work, and it was an adventure, but that then allowed us to buy our next house. And we kind of step laddered up.
Talk about commitment and determination to your goals and that healthy mindset. You talked about mindset earlier. Can you tell me, you said it would only take like 3 mindset shifts for a person to be wealthy. Can you talk to me about what mindset is and how it is important to you?
Sure. So for me, mindset, it's all about having the right perspective on things. And for me, when we were house hacking, technically for like loan purposes, financial purposes, when you get funding, you have to live in the house for a year. And we did what I love so much about house hacking is that you when you're buying a house that you're going to live in, you can use traditional financing. So we
Mhm.
only had to put down like 5-10%. We didn't have to save the full 20%. And we live in a very high cost of living area. So for us, 20% is like crazy. Like if we were going to invest. And if we wanted to move into the nice areas as like a single family, there's no way we could afford it. So this allowed us so much more flexibility to get into these nice areas, and we don't need to have a ton of properties. We just need a couple because our equity is already like quadrupled in them. So for us, my mindset was I could do anything for a year, even with kids. Like we could always figure out if we really needed to move or we needed to then rent somewhere else. We could do it. Like we could do anything. So that was really my mindset shift of that it wouldn't be so bad. So that was kind of like the first thing. And then the other thing too is like I knew I didn't want to work forever. And like I said, we do live in a high cost of living area. So not even is housing high, everything else is high. So if I wanted to eventually be a stay-at-home mom or work less and have more flexibility, I knew there was no way I could continue doing what we were doing and doing what
Right.
everyone else is doing. So we needed to do something differently. And I just saw real estate as the vehicle to really help us get our finances in order and allow us to rapidly reach our financial goals and allow more time flexibility.
You brought up the whole you can do anything for a year. My husband and I, very similar situation. We moved into one of our houses and we realized that the house next to us was a rental and the house on the other side was a rental. And we found out how much they were getting. And we're like, oh my gosh. So we moved out of that house and we moved into an apartment complex. I had never been in an apartment building. I just have lived in houses my whole life. And we said, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to live in an apartment building. At that time, we were looking at buying our first apartment building. So we're like, okay, if we're going to buy a building, we need to see the ins and outs, what's good, what's bad. Hardest year of my life. Hardest year of my life. But it allowed us to turn one of our houses into another rental, and it allowed us to buy our apartment complex and kind of see the more of the in and outs or whatever. So that's insanely amazing. Question. What is your next step? You said you have quite a bit of equity in these homes. What are you thinking? Interest rates are kind of, crazy right now. Not compared to years and years ago, but right now
Yeah.
they're kind of tough.
So after we did the second one, COVID hit and we were trying to figure out our next steps then. And I said, now at this point we had two kids. I knew we needed to buy like the where we were gonna live. So our original plan was to do a live and flip, but we bought in another high cost of living area right when COVID hit. And so we literally lowballed people and we got extremely lucky and have this amazing location in a fantastic town with great schools and a huge lot that we can build and stuff. So the live and flip has changed. And so now we do have a lot of equity, but with the low rates and we're getting like cash flow, we're just rapidly saving to the next play that I would like to do is to buy an Airbnb using the second rental home so we can put maybe like only 10% down or less. And we're looking at a couple different markets. I haven't really committed yet. Right now, we're just in the savings phase because I really want to make sure with Airbnb, that's like a new thing for us. We really want to make sure we have reserves in case we mess up because anytime you do something new, you could mess up. And so that's also part, I
Right.
guess, part of my mindset, I should say, is like just having enough reserves that so that when we mess up, we have a cushion. And just to give me a little bit more security. So yeah, so that's our next play is we're really looking in some of the secondary markets now to do Airbnb that we can also either do midterm or long-term rentals in case there is like a bad recession coming or whatever could happen in the market.
I know you said you haven't committed, but what areas are you thinking about doing the Airbnbs?
We're looking in possibly Florida, because selfishly I like Florida and it would be great to have like access to the
Perfect.
parks and stuff with kids. And then I have a friend of mine who's launching a property management company in Georgia. So having boots on the ground is important to me. So that's another potential area. And then we also have some friends in Alabama. We were that if we did the Alabama route, that we probably would just do like a BRRRR strategy or like a more long-term rent. But I really like having someone I know on the ground. It just makes me feel better too.
I've not done an Airbnb yet. They kind of scare me a little bit just
Yeah.
because, well, they do. The thing with multifamily real estate is you're gonna have somewhere to go. You got to have a place to live, unless you're in the streets. And it makes me nervous, Airbnbs. I'm so afraid. I know in our area the laws are changing every 5 seconds, it feels like with
Yeah.
Airbnbs and restrictions. And I mean, I'm assuming it's the same thing all over the country. Have you thought about going into multifamily?
I have. The only thing that's stopped me really from that is just financing because I feel like I don't want necessarily a large portfolio. I don't want to like deal with it. So for us, we just need like one or two more houses. So if I can get something with like a low down payment, potentially, or something more affordable that we can pay a lot in cash and then just like Airbnb it. But if the market changes, that we could also still rent. So that's what that's definitely factoring into where we Airbnb is something that will then be able to be rentable for
Gotcha. Can
cash flow
can
as
you
well.
tell me, since you said you are a real estate agent, how does you being a real estate agent and the knowledge that you have from that, how does that factor into your investment properties?
It's actually funny. I think it's reverse.
You
It's
think?
more that my real estate investing has helped me be a better agent for people because I know what to look for. I know like what's good about a house. Like, yeah, a house could be great, but especially in this market, it's so tough. So I feel like I can get much more creative strategy of one getting offers accepted if there's like really major problems from the just not nice problems. And I can distinguish a lot easier. So I feel like people appreciate that more. So it's kind of funny. I kind of almost feel like it's the reverse way to some extent.
Have you started getting any more, since you're an agent, but you also classify yourself as an investor, are you getting more clients that are leaning towards the investing area, or are they more just buy residential houses?
I get both. It's honestly where we live right now, it's extremely tough. Like people are looking for deals, and I'm like, there just is not a deal right now. Either you need to be a contractor and can completely rebuild a house, or know someone who can do it cheap. Because right now, the market is high because there's so little inventory, so you have high rates, especially if you're not like cash. So you're paying a high mortgage comparatively. You are still competing, and or if there's markets, if the house has been sitting, there's a reason why it's been sitting. And then chances are like that's going to be a problem that you may not want to deal with. Either you're having tenants you're going to have to evict, there's structural issues or something that's more serious than just like a normal cosmetic clean, unfortunately, right now. So it's much harder for investor to work with investors right now.
Because of your flips, because of your rehabs, because of the knowledge that you have you thought about getting your contracting license?
I've never even
But
thought about that actually.
but it sounds like you have a plethora of information and things that you know and you do and things that will make a house well. It sounds like something you could do.
You know, I've never even been asked that. So like you're making me pause. I have no idea actually. I will say that being in the real estate market as an agent has been extremely stressful lately. So
Mm.
I've been considering pivoting into something else. At least for now until things change. But I've never considered that. I never even thought about that. So actually thank you for bringing it up.
What do you do? And I know you said you're in a little bit of a different position since you don't plan to have this great large portfolio. What do you do to ensure that the places that you bought, the houses, those investments are going to rock? How do you make sure? Like, what is your buy box, I suppose, to make sure that what you buy rocks and doesn't plummet?
So we bought in really strong like areas. We bought near train stations, and I know you're always going to have tenants. We take really good care of our property. We have very strong leases.
Okay.
So because we take really good care of our property, and whenever a tenant has an issue, we're very responsive. So I know we will always have good quality tenants. I'm not worried. And I also know that like these rentals are in such great locations, like near downtown, like all those things that even in a market downturn, like we may have to lower rent, but we'll always have tenants. So, and even if not, like we've also lived in our houses, so we know what they're like. And worst comes to worst, we could also always move back into these houses. Like we bought them too in case like we have aging parents, and we need to have different care for them. Like what you know, by hopefully by the time they would ever need it, the houses will be paid off. We also have a very strong reserve. I like to have at least $10,000 per house, just in like a savings account, just in
Mhm.
case, you know, because things always go wrong. But we maintain them, and we do the cap. Like we've had to do things, but we know that it'll be worth it in the long run. The land itself, we feel like is just so valuable, if nothing else, for the property.
That's awesome. I never thought about the whole aging parents thing. That has never crossed my mind. So that's now something I need to think about because, my husband and I, we have aging parents as well. So it's a great thing to think about with our houses. You said that you have very strong leases. What do you have any like little special things in your lease that make it super strong? The little ins and outs that you're like, oh yeah, this is a good lease.
So we actually got our leases from the Bigger Pockets site.
Okay.
So I got that lease, and then I went to an attorney because I still wanted to customize it for our state and everything. So between those two things, I felt like we have a very strong.
Have you had
Um,
any issues with tenants in the past?
we actually did. So one of our units we rent to college students, and it's one lease, but it's essentially five people.
Yeah.
And one of the kids wasn't paying, and I said, listen, like, and we also have guarantors too. So whenever we rent to that kind of crowd, we make
Yeah.
sure we have a guarantor. I say, listen, if you don't pay the rent or get your dad to cover for you, like you were like this is going to impact you. If we evict you, like it's gonna show up on your job. It's gonna show up on your credit. Like, do not do this. You are too young. Just pay us. Like it wasn't even that much money comparative, like because I'm like, borrow it. I don't want to evict you, but you are forcing my hand.
Hmm.
And it got through, and sure enough, like the next day we got that check coming in. That was the only time we've ever really had an issue with anyone. And again, we had the guarantor, so I called his dad right away, and it was like not an issue.
What is your screening process like?
So I go crazy because I've actually found like I don't just check your job. Like when I call, I don't even like I really say hello. I let the person tell me who they are first to make sure it's
Mhm.
the right name, because I've caught people who have put like the wrong thing. I Google the job. I call the job directly from the website. I ask for the HR person. Like I ask for all the references, but I don't actually really use it. I go directly to the sources. I call the prior landlords. I verify like where they like actually were. The biggest thing is really with the job and the income, to really make sure, because I've had people make up jobs before. Like the website was like, I think they may have even created the website themselves, but they took him to like a PO box, and I will dig to find something. I checked the Facebook. I check Instagram. I mean, we are in compliance, obviously, with all like the fair housing laws and everything
Right,
like
right.
that. But like, I really want to make sure that like I will call all references to, and always ask past landlords why they're leaving, and I make sure it checks out with the same reason that they gave. Because sometimes I've had discrepancies that way. The tenant tells me one thing and the landlord tells me another, which shows whether or not it's true or not that the landlord, it might be a friend and not someone who actually knows the situation. So things like that. If I get like a bad feeling that something's not checking out, then we say no.
We do the same thing. It has to be, you got to check it out. These are your properties. These properties are our
Yeah.
babies. I'm going to assume that y'all self-manage. Is that correct?
Yeah, and we also live in a very tenant-friendly state. So I really want to make sure that like I don't want to get into trouble. Because if
Yeah,
someone's in there, it's
absolutely.
gonna be a lot harder to get them out.
We also self-manage. Have you had any experience with a property management company?
No, we're so local, it's not worth it for us to spend it. Like we have a handyman. Finally, my husband's handy, and we don't, it's not like we have a huge portfolio that we need, but
Hmm.
my husband's getting kind of sick of like going out when we have. So like we have a handyman now that I can call if there's like something. But honestly, even still now my husband goes once in a while because it's like small things. It's something that could usually wait a little bit that we can kind of adjust our schedule.
You talked about possibly pivoting away from real estate at this point. What are you thinking of?
I want to buy more property, but I don't necessarily want to be an agent. The market, there's just not a lot of inventory. It's just very hard to be an agent right now. So I honestly don't know yet. I'm kind of just seeing what's out there. I love being home with the kids. We built the portfolio now that I don't necessarily have to. I mean, I still need to make some money, but I don't need to work the traditional 9 to 5. I don't need to hustle anymore. I hate use that word
Right.
hustle, but like we worked hard in our 20s and our early 30s, and now we're at a point where we have more optionality. But we also have a lifestyle that we want to maintain. Like we could definitely cut back. We don't need to spend, $4,000 a kid on camp every on the summer. But if we can, we would like to. Like that's something we value, but we know it's absurd. We're kind of making decisions now on first where can we actually cut because we have a lot of room. We also are still saving at a very high percentage rate that we don't necessarily need to save as much. We could slow down a little bit. So yeah, I don't know yet. I'm kind of actually right in the process now of figuring what the next steps will be.
I like the word options because I like that you have the option to go to work. I have the
Mm.
option to stay home. I have the option to fly to Paris on a Tuesday because I want a baguette. I want
Yes.
these options, and we have one daughter and we keep talking about buying properties, putting in her name, having her part of this process at our apartment complex. We have on-site laundry, and her job on the first of the month is she goes in, she sweeps the floors. She's 5. She sweeps the floor, she
Mm.
wipes down the machine, she pulls out the
Mm.
coin, and her prize is for doing the work is she gets to go bowling with her daddy. I hate bowling. They like it. So I let them go do their thing. How do you want your kids to be a part of your process, your journey? How do you want them to be involved?
Oh, they are. When we meet tenants, they come with us. When we go sometimes to fix stuff on the property, they come with us. And ours are young too. We have 6 and 3. They know that like they have houses and like we collect rent and we make houses nice. Even when I go on showings sometimes with clients, I bring my kids just to show them different houses. Like they now know like kind of like, oh mommy, I don't like this layout. This wouldn't be good for this. Like, like they're picking all that stuff up. And we're very honest too of even spending. I don't like to say we can't afford it, but I always say we can't afford it right now because we are putting money towards this. So like I just had this conversation with my daughter. I can't remember exactly what she wanted to buy, but I think it was even just going out to eat. And we've been really kind of tightening what we're going out to eat because I said, we just spent a lot of money on all of your activities for next year. So we value you like to do things after school instead of just coming home. That's where we just put a lot of our money. So right now we're not spending money on here because we're putting it here. So we're very intentional too on even how we talk about money, how we think about money. I think with like not allowance, but like starting to teach them how to manage their own money. I had a Dee from Money Kids Academy come on, and she did this phenomenal episode about how she teaches her kids money and how she allocates money to them. And I love it. And I really want to start implementing. I'm just waiting for my 3-year-old to turn 4, but it's essentially giving your kids their age in dollars every week And they can manage it however they want. They are going to give some to tzedakah or to charity. They're going to give some for, savings and investings, and then they're spend on whatever they want to do. But it's their money, and they're going to control it.
So I love Grant Cardone. He's kind of a crazy
Mhm.
person, but I like his business principles of what he does. My daughter is obsessed with Grant Cardone. I did
Oh, that's awesome.
one of his virtual boot camps, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, and he sent us like a little prize box. And there was a picture. He's on like a yellow card on a popsicle stick. She runs around my house almost every day with a Grant Cardone
So
face.
cute. That's so
He
cute.
has the 10X Kids book, and I've read it, and it's great. I've tried to
Ooh, I don't
explain
know
to
about
her
that.
10X Kids by Grant Cardone puts money in kid words. It's fantastic. I know that one of my goals eventually, when I get to the point of leaving my W 2, which I'm a school teacher, so I'm already calls all the time, but when I leave that W 2 and I'm able to focus more on real estate, I would love to open a financial literacy school for
Mm,
kids in the area. I live in an area, um, everyone's comfortable for the most part. There's always levels of high and low. Pretty much everyone's comfortable. They go on a Disney World every year, put it that way. And
okay.
these kids have no idea about money. I mean,
Yeah.
no idea. They don't
Yeah.
have a clue what things cost. Hell, I don't think their parents know because they'll come in with $400 tennis shoes, but they don't have a notebook for school. So I want to be able to teach them what money is, how to use it, but how to pay your bills, but how to use it for you. Like at our house, I love debt. Good debt is one of our
Yeah.
favorite things. The
Yeah.
more debt I get, the happier I am. I don't plan on ever paying off a property. I'm going to just refi those suckers over and over and over, pull that money out and go buy something new. But my daughter is starting to figure these things out, just like you and your kids. It's
Hmm.
pretty amazing what they are going to figure out. She knows on the first of the month, mama and daddy are happy because click, 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 my phone, ka-ching, 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 the money's coming in, and it's
Hmm.
amazing and it's beautiful. And another thing, I'm super happy you're doing that with your kids. I think that's very special.
I'm
Yeah.
realizing you're making me think that we should do like a little happy dance on the first of the month for rent.
Absolutely. It's coming in. The
Yeah.
money's coming in. We work
Yeah. We
hard.
should do that.
Mom and dad, my husband, we also self-manage, but my husband is the one who's going to run out and go fix the air condition with a repairman because I have bedtime with my daughter. So like, I'm staying home with her, and he's doing more of the work. So a lot of it is daddy's working hard, mommy's working hard. We go to these meetups. I'm a huge local meetup person. I love conferences all over the country. I love to meet. Networking is probably my favorite thing on planet Earth. But she's starting to realize that, oh, well, mommy and daddy went to this meeting, this meeting, this meeting. But because we get to go to the beach in 3 weeks. Because if I
Yeah.
don't do this, we're not going to the beach because I'm a public school teacher. Like it ain't me who making, I'm not paying the mortgage.
Yeah.
So it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I think more people should have their kids involved. I went to several Grant Cardone events in the past. There was a lot of kids there. I was extremely impressed. Now, most of them were 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, so older than our kids. But the fact that people had their children there, like mind blown. That the
Yeah.
opportunities, the things they're hearing, the way people dress is different in a big conference. So seeing their
Yeah.
kids dressed up and being professional and meeting people. I mean, meeting people is hard, especially for
Yeah.
hell, it's hard for us as adults.
Yeah.
So putting a kid in that position is I don't know. I love it. I love it. My goal when Caroline turns 13, which she has already been to, because all of our houses are new constructions. We like the new builds. We took her to one of the house builds, and she picked out every single thing for the inside of that house. The
That's
carpet, the
amazing.
flooring, the wall. She picked everything. We guided her in the colors that made
Yeah.
sense, but she picked everything. I mean, she knows, and I want her to understand that real estate, like you said in the very beginning, can make you wealthy.
Yeah.
I have several college degrees. My husband barely passed high school. And here we are making all of this money. You don't have to go spend $100,000 in college. If you want to go do that, fine, no problem.
Yeah.
But there
Yeah.
are other avenues. Again, options. I'm all about
Yeah.
the options. I'm all about the
And
options.
what I love too is as we're talking, like our stories are different, but we're both like you guys are choosing you're creating this huge portfolio, but for us, we don't even need that huge like you don't have to, you can do whatever avenue works for you and customize it for you. So for us, like for right now, where we are at, we don't want the big portfolio. We don't want to deal with it. But like that doesn't mean we can't be smart and strategic in how we buy and still create like real generational wealth and live in a high cost of living area. Like, you know what I mean? I will say, like, now, like when we bought it was a few years ago, so it's much harder now. But I feel like it's back then there was also excuses. They were different excuses, but there was
Yep.
excuses. So I feel like it's just getting creative and whatever wherever you are and just figure out what works for you and then just go after it.
You have to figure out what's working for you. But that's the point of the name of this podcast, the financial game plan, because I feel like real estate's a game. And inside the game of real estate, there's 300 other games you can play. You
Yeah.
don't have to play the same game and everybody can win. This
Yeah.
is not this is not a participation trophy thing, but
No,
like
this is
everybody can win.
yeah, no, it's so
It's
true. Like you can go after single family, you go through multifamily, you go flips and flips, you could do live in flips, you could house hack like us, you could do the multis, the part like whatever, Airbnb, there's something. The one thing I will caution though is just pick one thing though and get really good at that because there is a million things and you can get like I even know I have had shiny object syndrome. That's also kind of why like when you asked me like are you like do you want to grow? Like part of me is like also just trying to focus because I
yeah.
could grow and I know myself, but I also know like that's not really what we want right now. So like I'm also trying to like just pick one play and just do it and do it well and just kind of, go
So
that
we
route.
started we started with single family homes. Our original plan was to buy one house, wait 5 years, refinance it, go buy two houses.
Yeah.
Wait 5 years, refinance, go buy four houses. Like that's just kind of our plan. And we were like, okay, that's not going to work for us. And then we found the apartment complex, and now I'm like, I want all the apartment complexes. I
Yeah.
want $1 billion portfolio. That's my goal. I want $1 billion portfolio. I would like to have about 500 million by the time I'm 50. We'll see. I don't know. But
Nice.
I want
Nice.
a
I
I
love
want a
it.
$1 billion portfolio. I want apartments all over the place. I want to grow, and I want to eventually go out of the country and have complexes and resorts. I would love to have a hotel resort one day, somewhere in
That's
Costa
awesome.
Rica, Bali, something. But those are big lofty goals. For today, I want to buy another complex. That's where I'm
But
at.
you're already on the way. Like you buy another
Yes,
one, buy another one.
yes, I'm on the way, but it's not easy, but anyone can do this.
Yeah.
I'm a small town kid. Like there's nothing fancy about me, and we're doing this. And I
Yeah.
want everyone who's listening, I want everyone to do this, and I want to help them do this. They don't have to do this alone. There are podcasts,
Yeah.
there's YouTube channels. You can join a mentorship. We're getting ready to join one next week. I'm super excited about it.
Awesome.
You have to. This is definitely a relationships business. Have you found that to be true
Oh, a
in
thousand
your neck of
percent.
the woods?
Yeah, like even just finding really good lenders I trust, finding good even my handyman, like totally like through networking. Um construction like contractors are so rare to find good ones. Like I'm still looking
Hence,
for
hence,
them.
you get your license.
You're making me think. You're making me
Something
think.
to think
Yeah,
about. I mean, they're
yeah,
hard to find. And if you know what you're doing and you show up, people are going to pay you. Okay, Jen, this has been so fun and so exciting. I have three final questions that I tend to ask all of my people in the show. Are you ready?
of course. Let's fire away.
All right. So the first one, okay, tell me something on your bucket list that you would like to accomplish within the next year.
I really want to live in Israel for a year. That's
Oh,
on my list. Yeah. I want to take the
wow.
kids. I want to rent out our current house, have the one more property under our belt, and then really like just like see all the holidays throughout, like live there for a year and just experience everything and new culture and
All right. Second thing on my list is, what is a skill that you've always wanted to learn?
like actual contract
Anything.
work. Yeah, like actual
Hey.
contract work. I would like. I wish I'm not handy at all, but I wish like I could do like if fix like plumbing or like just something that like could really add value to the house that I feel like I know it's like I know a guy, but I'm never the
Yeah.
person like
Yeah.
like I always know people, but I would like to maybe be that person that someone's like, oh, I could call Jen and she could come fix it.
My last question. If you could go back in time and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you say?
I'll buy more property. I wish we would have had house hacked and like back then in the market that I know now. Like even I knew we were doing the right thing, but we should have bought like 5 properties. Then I should have bought one in my boyfriend, now husband's name, and I should have bought one myself, and we should have had like 6 properties by now, just
If we could go
between.
back in time, huh?
Yeah, yeah,
Man, the things I would do differently. Okay.
yeah.
This has been amazing. I have appreciated your time so much. If anyone wants to get in touch with you, how can they do so?
Sure. You can go to investormama.com and you can go to investormama.com/connect. You can find my social media, everything there. You can also check out the Investor Mama podcast anytime where you hear podcasts. I would love to hear from you if you have any questions, real estate or anything personal finance. Definitely hit me up. I would love to connect.
Jen, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it.
And Hannah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Bye. You have a great day. If you enjoy this podcast, please like, follow, subscribe, and leave me a 5-star review. I would love to continue doing this. And you guys giving me that positive feedback really makes my heart happy and lets me continue to do what I enjoy. Thanks so much, guys. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.